your heart could be silently stealing your energy every single day. Chronic tiredness isn't always about sleep, sometimes it's about a missing mineral that helps your heart keep the lights on. In this video first I'll show you how magnesium, a tiny molecule involved in over 300 enzyme reactions, directly impacts heart rhythm, blood flow, and the cellular energy that powers your day. If you're exhausted, jittery, waking at 3 a.m., getting muscle cramps, or feeling your heart flip-flop after coffee, stay with me. First I'll explain the clear signs that point to magnesium trouble, why standard blood tests often miss it, and how optimizing magnesium can reduce palpitations, improve sleep quality, lower blood pressure, and boost daytime energy. Quick science: magnesium helps produce ATP, your cell's energy currency, calms electrical activity in the heart to prevent arrhythmias, relaxes blood vessels for better circulation, and blunts stress hormones that sap vitality. Low magnesium can create a feedback loop: poor sleep, higher stress, worse heart function, more fatigue. Practical next steps first I'll walk you through include realistic food swaps, leafy greens, nuts, seeds, beans, dark chocolate, which supplement forms clinicians prefer and why serum tests can be misleading, plus when to push for better testing or see a cardiologist. No miracle cure, just targeted fixes you can implement safely. Watch the full video to get a step-by-step plan to reclaim your energy and protect your heart, and hit subscribe so you don't miss the protocol. First, use with patience. 1. The link between low magnesium and heart palpitations. Low magnesium disrupts the heart's electrical stability and is a surprisingly common trigger for palpitations. The mineral is a critical cofactor for enzymes and ion pumps that control the flow of sodium, potassium, and calcium in cardiac cells. When magnesium is low, cell membranes become more excitable and rhythm disturbances are more likely. Clinically, this can show up as premature atrial or ventricular beats that feel like skips, fluttering sensations, or a racing heart. In more severe depletion, low magnesium can contribute to atrial fibrillation and even the specific, dangerous rhythm called torsades de pointes. Short, sharp palpitations after a night of heavy drinking, or persistent fluttering in someone on a loop diuretic, are not uncommon presentations of this treatable electrolyte problem. The practical approach starts with recognizing risk factors and testing intelligently. Patients taking certain medications, loop and thiazide diuretics, proton pump inhibitors, some cancer therapies and amphotericin, are at higher risk because these drugs promote magnesium loss or impair absorption. Other common contributors include chronic diarrhea, high alcohol intake, intense prolonged exercise with heavy sweating, and poorly controlled diabetes. A single normal serum magnesium does not rule out deficiency because only about 1% of total body magnesium circulates in blood. If clinical suspicion is high, conversations with a clinician about repeat testing, red blood cell magnesium, or a therapeutic trial of supplementation make sense. Treatment strategies are straightforward but must be individualized. For symptomatic or clearly low magnesium, oral supplementation combined with dietary changes often reduces palpitations. Good food sources include dark leafy greens, nuts, seeds, legumes, and whole grains. Among oral forms, some individuals tolerate magnesium glycinate or citrate better than oxide because of absorption and gastrointestinal side effects. Intravenous magnesium is reserved for urgent situations, such as severe arrhythmias or torsades, and for patients who cannot absorb oral forms. Importantly, kidney function dictates safety. Impaired renal clearance raises the risk of magnesium accumulation, so monitoring is necessary when supplements are started in those patients. Put it together as a simple plan: identify risk factors and offending medications, interpret labs with clinical context, improve intake from food and choose an appropriate supplement if needed, and monitor symptoms and kidney function. If palpitations are accompanied by lightheadedness, chest pain, fainting, or very rapid or sustained irregular rhythms, urgent medical evaluation is required. Talk with your healthcare provider about testing and a tailored plan. Correcting magnesium often quiets the heart and brings relief. 2. Why modern soil makes you magnesium deficient. Plant-available magnesium has become scarce in many modern food chains because the way we grow crops prioritizes nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium while overlooking the mineral balance that plants, and ultimately humans, need. Intensive row cropping strips the same fields of nutrients season after season, and standard NPK fertilizers don't replace magnesium. As a result, vegetables and grains can look healthy and high-yielding while carrying lower concentrations of this essential mineral. Several soil processes common to modern farming accelerate magnesium loss. Leaching washes magnesium out of sandy and acidified soils, especially where heavy rainfall or irrigated fields are involved. Soil acidification itself, often driven by repeated nitrogen fertilizer use, increases solubility and loss of magnesium. Applying lime to correct pH can help crops, but using calcitic lime, calcium-rich, without magnesium-bearing forms can displace magnesium on soil exchange sites and reduce its availability. High applications of potassium or ammonium fertilizers also compete with magnesium at root uptake sites, making plants absorb less even when some magnesium is present. Management and processing choices further widen the gap between soil magnesium and dietary intake. Continuous monocultures and the decline of organic matter reduce the soil's cation exchange capacity, so magnesium isn't retained well between crops. Erosion removes topsoil where much of the mineral content resides. On the consumer side, milling and refining grains or removing skins and bran strips away magnesium-rich components. Even household water treatment can play a role. Water softeners that exchange calcium and magnesium for sodium can leave drinking water low in magnesium, cutting another dietary source. Fixing the problem requires both field-level and personal interventions. Farmers and gardeners can use soil tests and leaf tissue analysis to identify magnesium deficiencies and then apply targeted amendments such as kieserite, magnesium sulfate monohydrate, Epsom salts for foliar or soil application in small-scale situations, or dolomitic lime where pH correction and magnesium enrichment are both needed. Building organic matter with compost and cover crops improves retention and reduces leaching. Rotating crops and reducing excessive potassium fertilization help restore nutrient balance. For consumers, choosing whole foods, green leafy vegetables, nuts, seeds, and whole grains, and buying from producers who use balanced fertilization or regenerative practices increases the chance of getting dietary magnesium. Check your home water's hardness and the settings on any softener, since restoring some mineral content in drinking water can be a practical boost. Start by testing. Request a soil or tissue test for garden beds, ask your local extension or agronomist for a magnesium assessment, and consider a blood magnesium check if you have persistent fatigue despite dietary changes. Add compost and consider targeted magnesium amendments for plants where tests indicate low levels. If you're uncertain about food sources or water quality, consult a nutrition or agricultural professional and take a small, measured supplement only after confirming a deficiency. These coordinated steps, field, food, and household, restore magnesium where it's lost and help resolve one hidden driver of ongoing tiredness. 3. Boosting ATP, the cellular energy miracle. ATP rarely floats freely inside cells, it almost always exists as a magnesium-bound form, MgATP, and that simple chemical pairing is what powers everything from your first morning steps to each heartbeat. When magnesium is scarce, the machinery that makes and uses ATP slows down. The result is not just tiredness, it's cellular engine sputtering at a lower gear, and the organs with the highest energy demand, like your heart and brain, feel it first. Low cellular ATP is a common reason people report persistent fatigue despite sleep and good intentions. Rest alone won't fix an energy crisis caused by missing cofactors. The solution is to restore the raw materials and helpers of bioenergetics, and magnesium is one of the most critical helpers. It's a cofactor in well over 300 enzymatic reactions, many of which are directly involved in glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, and oxidative phosphorylation, the three main routes cells use to make ATP. Enzymes such as hexokinase and phosphofructokinase in glycolysis, the ATP synthase complex in mitochondria, and creatine kinase in muscle all require magnesium to function optimally. In short, without magnesium, ATP synthesis becomes inefficient, ATP utilization falters. At the molecular level, magnesium stabilizes the negative charges on ATP, allowing kinases to transfer phosphate groups, and enabling ATP-dependent pumps to move ions across membranes. In heart cells this matters profoundly. Cardiac contraction and electrical stability depend on ATP-driven pumps, NOT+/K+, ATPase and the circa pump among them, to maintain ion gradients. When ATP production dips because magnesium is limited, those pumps lag, which can contribute to palpitations, reduced exercise tolerance, and a sense of overwhelming fatigue after activity that used to feel easy. Similarly, skeletal muscle relies on creatine kinase to buffer ATP during short bursts. With low magnesium, that buffering is impaired and fatigue comes faster. Practical steps bring this biochemistry into everyday life. Start by emphasizing magnesium-rich whole foods, leafy greens, nuts and seeds, legumes, whole grains, and dark chocolate. These supply magnesium along with fiber and other micronutrients that support mitochondrial function. Be mindful of common drains on magnesium. Excessive alcohol, certain diuretics, and long-term use of proton pump inhibitors can reduce body magnesium. Blood serum magnesium often stays normal until deficiency is moderate, so if symptoms fit, ask your clinician about more sensitive measures such as red blood cell magnesium or targeted functional assessments rather than relying solely on a standard serum test. Pairing magnesium strategies with adequate B vitamins and ensuring good sleep, moderate aerobic activity, and stress management multiplies the benefit because those elements also support mitochondrial ATP production. If fatigue feels chronic, don't ignore it. Talk to your healthcare provider about evaluating magnesium status and about safe supplementation if appropriate. Small, consistent changes in diet and attention to medications and lifestyle can restore magnesium-dependent ATP dynamics and bring back steady, reliable energy. Start with one practical change this week: add a handful of nuts or a serving of leafy greens daily, and track how your stamina responds while you pursue testing and professional guidance. 4. Transdermal versus oral, the best way to absorb minerals. Oral supplements deliver predictable doses that travel through the gut, and that route happens to be both a strength and a weakness. Some oral salts, for example, magnesium oxide, are poorly absorbed and commonly leave people with loose stools, while chelated forms like magnesium citrate or glycinate are generally better tolerated and taken up more efficiently by the intestine. When absorption is working well, blood levels and total body stores can be increased with oral therapy, and clinicians can monitor serum magnesium to confirm improvement. But when the digestive tract is the problem, chronic diarrhea, inflammatory bowel disease, or medications that interfere with absorption, swallowing pills can fail to correct a deficiency or cause intolerable side effects. Topical options promise a workaround: magnesium chloride, magnesium oil, rubbed on the skin, or soaking in magnesium sulfate, Epsom salt, baths to ease muscle tension. They bypass the gastrointestinal tract entirely, which is appealing if oral therapy produces cramps or diarrhea. Anecdotally, many people report reduced muscle tightness and better sleep after a hot magnesium soak. The local warming and relaxation effect of a bath also contributes. Scientific data on systemic uptake through intact skin is limited and inconsistent, however, because the outer skin layer, the stratum corneum, is an effective barrier. Small trials and case reports exist, but they do not yet provide the consistent, dose-response evidence that oral formulations have. Clinical practicality matters more than marketing claims. Use oral magnesium when you need reliable, measurable repletion and when kidneys are functioning normally so excess can be excreted. Choose forms with better bioavailability and tolerability if the gut is sensitive. Consider topical magnesium as an adjunct, for localized muscle soreness, for patients who cannot tolerate oral forms, or as a soothing ritual that may improve sleep and recovery. Always apply topical products to healthy skin and be mindful that they can sting if applied to broken skin or on freshly shaved areas. Importantly, people with significant kidney impairment or those on medications that affect cardiac rhythm should not experiment without medical oversight, because systemic magnesium levels can rise and interact with other treatments. A practical, integrated plan often works best. Start by checking magnesium status with your healthcare provider and discuss which lab tests they prefer to monitor. If oral therapy is appropriate, select a well-absorbed form and split doses to minimize gastrointestinal side effects. If you experience intolerance, try topical magnesium chloride or a brief Epsom salt bath to ease symptoms while you reassess. Track symptoms and labs, and coordinate care with your cardiologist or nephrologist when there are underlying heart or kidney concerns. If you want concrete next steps, ask your clinician about testing and a short, supervised trial of either an oral chelated magnesium or a topical regimen to see which improves your energy, sleep, and muscle comfort. 5. Potassium-magnesium balance for steady blood pressure. Fatigue often conceals a biochemical tug-of-war inside your cells. Potassium and magnesium are teammates that keep blood vessels calm and blood pressure steady, and when their balance shifts, energy tanks follow. Potassium predominantly lives inside cells and helps set the electrical gradient that controls muscle contraction, including the smooth muscle of arteries, while magnesium stabilizes that system by supporting the sodium-potassium pump and acting as a natural calcium antagonist to prevent excessive vasoconstriction. Low potassium can raise vascular resistance. Low magnesium allows calcium to accumulate inside smooth muscle, both pushing blood pressure upward and leaving you drained. Fixing the problem starts with food first, not pills. Foods high in potassium, such as bananas, potatoes, with skins, beans, and leafy greens, combined with magnesium-rich choices like nuts, seeds, whole grains, and dark leafy vegetables create a synergistic effect. For example, a simple plate of roasted sweet potato, sautéed spinach, and a handful of almonds supplies both minerals in accessible forms. Small, consistent swaps beat sporadic megadoses. Swap a salty packaged snack for a yogurt topped with pumpkin seeds, and you support electrolyte balance while reducing sodium-driven water retention that stresses blood pressure. Understanding details helps you prioritize actions. Certain blood pressure medications, notably thiazide and loop diuretics, can increase urinary losses of potassium and magnesium, producing weakness, cramping, irregular heartbeats, and persistent tiredness if losses aren't replaced. Conversely, drugs like ACE inhibitors or potassium-sparing diuretics can raise potassium, so the clinical context matters. Kidney function must be considered before adding supplements because impaired renal clearance changes risk profiles. Clinical testing of serum electrolytes and, when indicated, a dietary review will tell you whether targeted supplementation is beneficial and safe. Integrating these ideas into daily life is practical and concrete. Build meals around color and texture: beans and quinoa bowls with avocado and sesame seeds, smoothies with spinach, banana, and nut butter, or a snack of plain yogurt and walnuts. Stay hydrated and cut down on highly processed foods, which often supply abundant sodium but little potassium or magnesium. This alone can shift your sodium to potassium ratio toward healthier blood pressure. If your doctor prescribes a diuretic, ask about monitoring and whether a potassium or magnesium supplement, or simply adding specific foods, makes sense. Track symptoms alongside labs. Increased energy, fewer cramps, and steadier blood pressure readings are signs the balance is improving. Take action by discussing electrolyte testing with your clinician and by trying one targeted dietary swap today: roasted chickpeas in place of chips, or a spinach and bean lunch instead of a deli sandwich. Small, consistent steps restore the potassium-magnesium partnership and often translate into steadier blood pressure and better energy. 6. The energy transformation: what to expect in 7 days. Magnesium is a critical cofactor for ATP production and for the ion channels that regulate heartbeat. Low magnesium can blunt cellular energy turnover and destabilize cardiac electrical activity, which often shows up first as fatigue, poor sleep, and palpitations. Many people with low magnesium don't feel dramatic changes overnight, but within a week subtle shifts in physiology and symptoms are common. Expect a progression rather than an instant fix. In the first 48 hours you may notice a calming effect and easier time falling asleep. Sleep onset can improve because magnesium helps regulate GABA and reduces nervous system hyperexcitability. Short sentence. Some people report fewer muscle twitches or less restless legs by night 2 or 3. Those improvements often precede daytime energy changes. By days 3 to 5 the body starts to use magnesium more effectively in mitochondrial reactions, so mental clarity and morning alertness often begin to return. Energy feels steadier rather than spiking and crashing. Heart-related symptoms can follow a similar timeline. Palpitations or premature beats often decline in frequency as magnesium helps stabilize cardiac ion flux, though rhythm improvements depend on the underlying cause. Keep in mind that gastrointestinal forms of magnesium can cause loose stools for some, which will alter how much you absorb and therefore how quickly you notice benefits. Between days 5 and 7 many people report measurable lifestyle benefits: longer stretches of deep sleep, better exercise tolerance, fewer nighttime cramps, and less daytime brain fog. For athletes or those who exercise, recovery between sessions often improves because ATP turnover and muscle relaxation rely on magnesium. A practical example: someone who previously woke twice nightly with calf cramps might find those cramps reduced or stopped by night 6, while their daytime concentration steadily rises. Integrate these changes by tracking simple metrics: sleep duration and quality, episodes of palpitations, daytime fatigue, and bowel pattern. Pair magnesium-rich foods, leafy greens, nuts, seeds, legumes, with any supplement strategy to support steady intake. Choose a gentler supplement form if you experience GI upset. Glycinate is often better tolerated while citrate can help if constipation is present. Avoid combining high supplemental calcium without guidance, and tell your clinician about any heart or blood pressure medications, since some diuretics and other drugs alter magnesium handling. If symptoms worsen or if palpitations are new, severe, or accompanied by dizziness or fainting, seek medical evaluation promptly. Otherwise, treat a 7-day window as an informative trial, monitor objectively, adjust intake based on tolerance and symptoms, and follow up with your healthcare provider for targeted testing or a longer-term plan if fatigue and cardiac symptoms persist. Take action now by logging your baseline symptoms, then reassess after the week to see whether magnesium-driven changes are helping your energy and heart rhythm. If you're constantly tired despite good sleep, don't blame just your schedule, think magnesium and your heart. Magnesium is a cofactor for over 300 enzymes, powers ATP, your cellular energy, and helps your heart keep a steady rhythm. Low magnesium can quietly sap energy, raise blood pressure, and cause palpitations that leave you drained. The fix is straightforward: test, nourish, and stabilize. Get your levels checked, ask about RBC or a clinical magnesium assessment since serum tests can miss deficiencies, prioritize magnesium-rich foods, leafy greens, nuts, seeds, legumes, whole grains, and consider targeted supplementation when needed. Forms matter. Glycinate is calming for sleep, citrate helps if you're constipated, and taurate can be heart-friendly. Typical supplemental ranges many adults find helpful are roughly 200 to 400 mg elemental magnesium, but always tailor dose with a clinician, especially if you have kidney issues or take diuretics, PPIs, or heart meds. Quick practical plan: you can start tonight. Add a handful of pumpkin seeds or almonds, swap in spinach for a meal, try 100-200 mg magnesium glycinate before bed, prioritize hydration and sleep hygiene, and follow up with your primary care or cardiologist if you have dizziness, chest pain, or irregular beats. From a clinical perspective, combining dietary change, thoughtful supplementation, stress reduction, and medical testing is the most reliable path from fatigue to real energy. To recap, low magnesium can drive fatigue through heart and cellular mechanisms, food plus targeted supplements correct many cases, and testing plus medical guidance keeps it safe. First, know how exhausting it feels to run on empty. Take one small step tonight. If this helped, like and subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive, a practical 7-day magnesium-rich meal plan, how to interpret tests, and a safe supplement protocol you can discuss with your doctor. Tell me in the comments what symptom you'd most like us to cover next, and first I'll make that video.